The rain was a cold, hard sheet against the windshield of Maria Sanchez's Ford Fiesta. It was 2:37 a.m. on a lonely stretch of I-95 just outside Miami. Maria wasn't just driving, she was running. She was driving away from a man she had testified against, a man who had threatened her, and a man who she knew was waiting for her. She saw the headlights loom in her rearview mirror. Too close, too fast. And then, the sound. Not a crash, not a screech of tires, but a hollow, sickening thud followed by a high-pitched scream. Maria slammed on the brakes, heart pounding, convinced she had hit an animal. She scrambled out into the deluge, her flashlight beam cutting through the rain. But there was no animal. There was a body, a young man crumpled and still on the shoulder of the road. And right beside him, half hidden by the overgrown weeds, was the front grille of a black pickup truck. But the truck was empty. Maria had stumbled onto a scene of a horrific hit and run. What she didn't know yet was that the driver of that empty truck was already gone, having committed the perfect crime, and that he would use a single, obscure loophole in the law, not just to evade responsibility for the body on the road, but to walk free from a crime the police knew he had committed. The victim was 24-year-old David Miller, a college student walking home from his job at a local diner. The forensic evidence was textbook.
Bagging item number
the
12
speed,
now.
the trajectory, the lack of skid marks.
Marker.
It was clearly a driver who was either drunk, distracted, or simply didn't care. Lead Detective Rick Harmon arrived at the scene. He had the body, the point of impact, and most importantly, a perfect DNA sample. Not from the victim, but from the driver's side airbag
That's a lot
of the
of blood for
abandoned
someone
black
who walked
pickup.
away.
The truck was registered to a single owner, Julian Hayes. Julian Hayes was a local businessman, influential, and known for his volatile temper and heavy drinking. Detective Harmon knew this case was over. They had the vehicle, the location, the motive, a possible DUI cover-up, and the killer's DNA on the steering column and airbag. The police tracked Hayes down at a friend's house less than 3 hours later. He was sober, calm, and had a lawyer on the phone immediately. When the warrant was served, Julian Hayes calmly explained the situation. He admitted the truck was his. He admitted he had been drinking, but he claimed he had panicked after the accident and run off into the darkness, catching a ride with an Uber he had called moments later. Detective Harmon placed him under arrest for vehicular homicide, leaving the scene of an accident and probable DUI. The case seemed simple, but then the defense lawyer walked into the precinct and delivered a single, chilling sentence that stopped the entire investigation cold. Julian Hayes was released on minimal bail. The defense argued a single, decisive motion. All evidence collected from the vehicle, including the DNA on the airbag, must be suppressed. The legal basis was obscure, tied to a 20-year-old Supreme Court ruling regarding the Fourth Amendment and privacy rights. The specific argument was devastatingly simple. The police had seized Julian Hayes' vehicle without a valid search warrant before they had established probable cause for the crime of murder. Wait, you ask. They found the body and the truck at the same time. How could there not be probable cause? This is where the loophole lies. The lawyer argued that at the moment the police seized the vehicle, they had only confirmed a hit and run, a misdemeanor. They had not yet established that David Miller was dead at the moment the truck was seized. They hadn't conducted a full medical examination, and they hadn't established the time of death. Therefore, the defense argued, the police seized private property, the truck, to investigate a felony, homicide, before the felony was officially confirmed. Any evidence collected after the illegal seizure, including the DNA, was fruit of the poisonous tree and therefore inadmissible. Detective Harmon was furious. He had the killer's DNA, but legally, he couldn't use it. Hayes had walked away from the scene, let the police find the evidence, and then used a procedural technicality, the timing of the probable cause, to void the most crucial evidence. With the DNA suppressed, the prosecution's case crumbled. They were left with an abandoned truck registered to Hayes, but no direct proof he was driving at the time of impact. His defense team claimed he loaned the truck to an unidentified friend that night, a friend who conveniently could not be found. Sergeant Harmon, acting now as a true crime expert, knew there was only one way to beat the system: find evidence that existed outside of the illegal vehicle seizure. He needed something Hayes couldn't explain away, something that predated the traffic stop. Harmon's team focused on the victim, David Miller. They re-examined every single detail of the crime scene. They weren't looking for the killer. They were looking for an echo, something the killer carried away with him. They went back to the moment of impact. The initial police report noted that the victim, David Miller, was wearing a thick woolen scarf.
Check this out.
It was found tangled around the rearview mirror of the truck.
Looks like blood residue right there.
But when the truck was processed for evidence, the scarf was nowhere to be found. Hayes must have taken it. Harmon realized Hayes hadn't called an Uber immediately. Hayes had run into the woods, removed the incriminating scarf from the truck, and disposed of it somewhere along the way. For 2 weeks, detectives searched the route Hayes would have run, not the road, but the dense, overgrown marshland parallel to it. They focused on storm drains, culverts, and thickets. Finally, 3 miles from the crash site, in a clogged storm drain, they found it: David Miller's woolen scarf. It was damp and decaying, but intact, and clinging to the fibers of the wool was a single, small speck of blood, not the victim's, but the driver's. Hayes had scraped his hand when he yanked the scarf from the damaged truck mirror. They got a new warrant for a DNA swab from Julian Hayes, citing the blood on the scarf as new, independent, probable cause, evidence unrelated to the seized vehicle. The DNA match was immediate. It was Julian Hayes. The defense attorney's argument about the timing of the felony, the legal loophole that freed him, was nullified. The new evidence, the scarf, proved that Hayes had not just abandoned a vehicle. He had committed the separate felony of tampering with evidence after the hit and run, which provided a clean, irrefutable link to him. Julian Hayes, the killer who thought he beat the system with a brilliant legal maneuver, was convicted of vehicular homicide and sentenced to 20 years. If this story of legal loopholes and ultimate justice resonated with you, hit the like button and subscribe to Echoes of Crime. We break down the cases where the justice system nearly failed. And tell us in the comments, do you think the DNA evidence should have been admissible anyway? Or was the judge right to follow the letter of the law? Let us know.